pleasant good night to you. Welcome to a new month. It's the month of October, and welcome to the People's Business. I'm your host, Shane Seeley, and tonight we're focusing on improving the lives of persons with disabilities. And we have a number of important individuals that have been working on a white paper which will be heading to Cabinet shortly, and then the next step is expected to be legislation. So to talk to you about what is happening as far as improving the lives of persons living with disabilities, we have Senator Andwele Boyce. He's a member of the Advisory Committee for Improving the Lives of People with Disabilities. Sonia Rawlins is also a member of the committee, and Kerryann Ifill, she is the deputy chair of that committee. So stick around, we have a lot to talk about, and you'll get to hear what the path is looking like, how they're charting the course for improving the lives of persons with disabilities. We'll take a break and be right back. Back with you on the People's Business. As you can see, we have Bonnie here so that we can make sure that that community is served as well as we talk about improving the lives of persons with disabilities. You'll hear that phrase a lot tonight. There has been a committee set up. They've been working hard to make sure they thrash out some of the important issues and ensure that they chart the right path to get this done, really. And it's all about making sure that you fix those priority areas, you deal with the priority areas, and you'll find out a lot about what those exactly were. There were town hall meetings as well, so that people could have their input. You heard a number of stories coming from people living with those with disabilities, some people whose their parents or their sons or daughters are living with disabilities as well. So it's all about making sure that we cater to them. We get it right so that they can fulfill their destiny, live their best lives. So tonight we have Senator Andwele Boyce, Ms. Sonia Rawlins, and Kerryann Ifill, all members of the Advisory Committee for Improving the Lives of People with Disabilities. Kerryann is the deputy chair, so I'll let you go first as the most senior member on that committee. Kerryann, talk to us about the work that has been done. Give us that progress update on what has been done so far.
Well, Shane, good evening to you and your audience this evening. We have been doing a lot of work. This committee is not a long-lived committee. We were established on the 1st of June, and our tenure comes to an end officially on the 30th of November. So it's not a long-standing committee, and our work has principally been to usher in the establishment of the legislation for persons with disabilities, which hopefully ultimately leads to a commission on disability. So we've had a whole heap of work. Actually the last meeting tomorrow will be with the ministries of government. So we've met with every conceivable ministry under the government. We had 3 meetings with the organized disabilities movement. We've met with the trade unions, the faith-based organization, the financial institutions. we've met with representatives of a variety of different entities, and we also hosted 3 town hall meetings where we met directly with the public, and we've also invited persons to make submissions through an email address, inclusion@barbados.gov.bb. So this has been a lot of work. I think we've had over 25 meetings. We've met with the Alliance for Progress Party, the Democratic Labour Party as well, because we wanted buy-in from as many conceivable areas as we possibly can. And if we didn't meet with someone, they can, like I said, they can still contribute. Now, all of this, why was this work necessary? This work was necessary because as far back as 2000, we had a green paper on disability. Then we laid the white paper in Parliament in 2002. Since then, we've had a variety of opportunities, a variety of steps forward. Government signed the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which is the United Nations Convention, back in 2007. Then it was ratified in 2013. So that would tell you that we've been doing work in this area. We've got the Employment Rights Discrimination Act that was brought out. We have legislation that was brought out in 2017 with regards to parking for persons with disabilities and restricting those parking areas. So each government, we keep making steps forward, not as fast as we would like, not as far as we would like, but we're making steps forward. We've had other entities out there that have been doing different work in varying capacities, but this committee's work is very comprehensive because the lives of persons with disabilities, sometimes people think that our lives are concentrated in this area or that education is the only thing that is necessary to be fixed for us, or employment opportunities, ensuring that employers know how to work with us, employees know what their rights are. Some people think that disability is merely a health construct, but it's not. Disability crosses the gamut of all life experiences. And therefore, the legislation that is eventually going to come out of this work has to reflect that gamut of issues. And
Right.
the Law Reform Commission, they commissioned Dr. Jason Haynes, former Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Law, to draft the legislation, which we have had considerable input into as well. So he did the bare bones, and we have provided through all of the consultations that we've had, we were able to put some flesh on some of those bare bones, and it's beginning to look a lot better. So we have a lot of key stakeholders that we've worked with. So as you can tell, Shane, we've been extremely busy over the past 4 months, and where we're headed now is the path is going to be, we're winding up activities. We're preparing our report, preparing for a big stakeholder convention in collaboration with the Law Reform Commission. And one of the things that I liked about the construction of this committee is that there are 8 persons that were chosen, in addition to the director of the National Disabilities Unit and a secretary. So there are 10 of us that meet. But of the 8, 4 are persons with disabilities, and the other 4 have lived experience of disabilities. 2 of them are parents of children with disabilities. The third, she is a parent of a person with a disability, but she's also involved in school administration. And the 8th, which is our chairman, the Honorable Edmund Hinkson MP, he is a long-time advocate for persons with disabilities, and he too has lived experience as he is the sibling of an adult who's deaf. So every one of the categories of disabilities are represented in one way or the other by this committee. And that is definitely, that means it's nothing about us without us, because we have older people, we have younger people, we have the full range. So it's definitely a very comprehensive approach.
Well, by all accounts, it appears and it's clear you had some very widespread consultation, and then you really were able to cover all the bases as far as the age ranges are concerned. And you have Andwele here, who I went to school with. He's a bit younger than me, though. Senator Boyce, I want you to talk to me about your level of satisfaction with the work done to ensure that you've gotten to this point where you've seemingly covered all of those priority areas for the disabled. Have you done that?
Thank you, Shane. I think we have the level of consultation that you just heard Kerry describe, I think is near unprecedented for the process of policy development, and certainly the process of policy development in as short a time as we have had, and the varying perspectives of those organizations, the recommendations that they have put forward, and also the opportunities to put the perspectives of persons with disabilities to them has been unmatched. And we hope to include all of that. We are including all of that really in the legislation that will come forth and hopefully improve the lives of persons with disabilities. It's because I think a great deal of time has passed between the signing of the CRPD, the ratification of the CRPD, and this point where we are really seeking to enhance the lives of persons with disabilities through domestic legislation. And I certainly think that we are doing the work that needs to be done and engaging with the stakeholders as is appropriate, Shane.
So let's get some input from Sonia as well. What do you like about what you've seen so far as bringing some of the issues to the table and having those dealt with as far as the initial, well, this is the precursor to the legislation, but as far as this stage of the consultation is concerned?
Okay, say on two sides. As the managed education services in a school, I have a lot of young persons that I would like to see their lives change. And with this legislation that hopefully will come through in the new year, then they can meet their full potential. And as a mother of a son who is 22 years old, who has a challenge, this is close to my heart, and I believe that we're going to the right path in order to make sure that there are changes for him in the next 22 years or so. I would like to see something different. I've had a lot of challenges with him from the inception, and I know other parents that I've talked to on my faculty, parents of the students that I actually have in my charge. They basically have experiences that I would like to see, you know, go away and changes happen as quickly as possible. And this is one of the ways forward. And I'm impressed with what we're doing so far. I think we've covered a lot of ground. We've actually been able to um, open up and to be pretty transparent with a lot of the entities that we've spoken to. And they have been transparent with us in terms of policies that they have in place. And we can only get better with the dialogue. And since we have a lot of fodder that we can now put into this paper, then we should be able to move forward briskly. So that is my opinion.
If you don't mind, Sonia, I want you to shed some light for our viewers on your situation and how this legislation or elements of it would help to make your life and your son's life a bit easier as he tries to transition to some level of normalcy.
Okay, now with my son, I would like to go back a little bit. Um, some of my challenges in the initial stages would have been getting balance for him. Some of my challenges would have been the receptions of the he's ill and how if he can't start on his own, how I would have to be. Some of the challenges would have been education, get him into the correct school. At each level, I was worried about the fact that I didn't know where else I was going to take him, considering that he didn't meet all the milestones that was required. And these were things I experienced that obviously added to my anxiety. And I learned that having a child's challenges, you're already anxious. And now you're adding additional things on the surface, which makes your life even more difficult. Young man now, he has the right to have his own bank account. He has his right to do certain things on his own. And these are still bottlenecks. Obviously, he has more to issues in terms of signing. These are things that we don't realize that fingerprinting identity important for him to move. So there's still a lot of challenges. See that he could actually have a full and fruitful life, whether I'm here or not, as time moves forward. So it's a passion. It is something I want to see changed. I've had, as I said, serious challenges over the years, but I'm one of these parents who get up and make it happen. There are others that don't have that fight in them because they're already tired with the fact that you're dealing with a young person or young persons in your family that would have challenges, and it's not easy. So I'm hoping that changes would happen to make our lives a lot easier, to make the lives of these individuals who have challenges a lot easier as well. They've already, have problems. We don't need to add to it, and that is something I would like to see changed. Yeah.
Well, we really hope that the work that you've done, and then when it all becomes law, legislation, that it would help to give some teeth to those who don't have the fight like yourself, to help their brothers, their sisters, family, friends, colleagues, wherever they are, help them to live, as you say, their best life and reach their true potential. All right, so let's take a break here. We still have a lot to digest tonight as we talk about improving the lives of people with disabilities. For you who want to make that call to us to find out a bit more about this legislation and what it can do for you or your friends, again, your family, and those you love, 228-5562, 228-5563. Those are the numbers to call. We'll be back in a few moments on this edition of The People's Business. Thanks for staying with us on The People's Business as we focus on making the lives of those with disabilities a whole lot better through legislation, by making it law, and by taking action. Kerryann is here with us. Of course, she is a longtime advocate for persons with disabilities. She's lived it her entire life. I remember her at Combermere. She had a number of friends there who would make sure that she was taken care of during that time. But this legislation can take things a step further. Yes, you have your friends, but then you can lean on the law, lean on knowing that you'll have access to a number or a wide range of things that would help improve the lives of people with disabilities. Let's go to the phone lines. We do have a caller on the line. Good night, caller. Welcome to The People's Business.
Yeah,
what's your question or comment?
You on the committee?
Good night.
Yeah, my problem is it's all right to have a committee for the disability, but I find my problem where you should really get the real help. It's like at the hospital and the polyclinics and things at those kind of institutions that you really need the help there, especially to the young nurses. Especially if you cannot, someone that can't take care of yourself properly, they have this attitude, they're just there like they're working for the money. And then despite the disability, I don't feel that I should feel they should have a certain place for the disability. You should have to be mixing with people that in good health and everything. They should have a place where the disability could go and get good attention. And they need to speed us decently. I had a
Well, we've seemingly lost that caller, but the caller did mention an area which is can be quite a concern, where people with disabilities try to access health care. How is that covered under the work that you and your team have done, Kerry?
Well, what we've done, as I said, we've met with key stakeholders in the process. We met with ministries of health to discuss what they're actually doing. And we met with the Nurses Association. So we've met with a whole host of different people, hearing from them where their concerns are, what are they doing, what is hampering their work. Now, as I said, this committee, what we are doing is looking at the legislation that will initiate the change. So under the legislation, there are different areas covered under healthcare. Calls for persons with disabilities to have equal access. Equal access means that if we go somewhere we need healthcare, that we find services there that cater to our needs. I'll give you one very simple example. Oral care for persons with a variety of disabilities is a big challenge, especially for persons who may be autistic or otherwise intellectually challenged and physically challenged as well. Accessing Some persons need to be anesthetized in order to have their oral care taken care of. Now, when you encounter the fact that there are parents who cannot afford to pay the, I think it's 360, but don't quote me on that one, dollars additional for the anesthesiologist to be present to, do that, there are questions like, how is that equitable? So those are some of the concerns that we try to flush out. Where are the issues? Gynecological, sexual reproductive health issues. That's another area of concern for persons with disabilities. And so the legislation speaks to providing access of that nature for persons with disabilities in an equitable, independent, and respectful and confidential manner. Because that's another big issue. A lot of time the services are there, but they're provided in such a way that you must depend on family members or others to take care of your personal business for you.
Right.
Simply because you have a disability, it doesn't mean that you do not have the right to privacy, and you do. And those are a lot of the areas that are covered. So that is one of the areas. But what the caller is saying is true. The deaf community, they struggle in all areas because of lack of communication, people not being trained to properly speak to their needs, to communicate with them, to do the sign language. Some persons, they wish to write, and I was recent as this week, I heard someone say that their work colleagues told them no, they can't, they want them to lip read, not write. You can't determine for me what my mode of communication should be. So those are some of the issues that we encounter. So yes, if the deaf go to the polyclinics, the hospitals, even private doctors' offices, they need to be facilitated in a manner that allows them to be as confidential as they can be, as they need to be. If they need interpreting services, that needs to also be included and considered as part of the service.
That's interesting what you mentioned there, Kerry, where you have a situation where your colleagues ask you to lip read. Can that be considered infringing on the rights of that deaf person?
Of course. Think about it. What I always try to say to people, think about what you would want for yourself. If you came into your office and you wanted to communicate with a colleague about something, it's like them telling you, don't talk to me, WhatsApp me. And that's the only mode of conduct, the only mode of communication they will accept. What if you don't use WhatsApp? What if you can't use WhatsApp? What if, those things? What if you don't have access to a smartphone? What then?
Yeah.
Now you might say that that's a triviality, but it's not. It is a violation. During COVID, the deaf community struggled badly with mask wearing, not because they wanted to flout or flaunt the rules, none of those things, but because when people wear masks, it's difficult. Even if they choose to lip read, it's difficult for them to communicate. Body language. People think sign language is just waving your hands around. Bonnie's not standing there waving her hands. She is using an alternative language, method. And it's not just her hands that are talking, it's her face, it's her body, it's her whole posture, it's the whole gamut of things that she's doing that's communicating effectively with the deaf community. So
Wow.
to say that, Bonnie should just not do that, she could just keep her face still, that's infringing on their rights. People need to understand that we have the right to ask for our needs to be met.
And what
And
you
we've just only
mentioned there,
barely scratched the surface.
yeah, what you mentioned there is very clear. You can see Bonnie, the gestures, the impressions. It would be very difficult wearing a mask and trying to do sign language. It's next to
Yes.
impossible, really. And I mean, we mentioned access to healthcare there, but we know that access generally is something that the disabled community has been struggling with across the board. And really, in terms of the legislation, have you been able to sort that out across the board too, to deal with some of the challenges that disabled people deal with on a daily basis? And are you still seeing areas where that really need addressing in society?
So yes, we're very much still seeing those issues. The legislation has taken a very comprehensive approach to accessibility, whether that is accessibility to our built environment, whether that's accessibility to the new kind of digital services that we're all accustomed to from banks and other financial insurance companies and other financial institutions, whether that is health. And a comprehensive and structural approach has to be taken, Shane, and that is that at the policy level, we need to ensure that more Barbadians are interested in sign language and that more Barbadians are trained in sign language. Because if we are to provide services to persons, um, persons who are deaf, that is, for instance, we need to be able to communicate with them and communicate with them as effectively as possible. Similarly, with banks, in our conversation with the Banking Association, they, I think, were in some ways taken aback by some of the recommendations and perspectives of persons with disabilities. So we know that, for instance, many ATMs, some ATMs in the country are inaccessible because the doors are smaller, there are no ramps leading to them.
Right.
Even using the ATMs, for instance, the swiftness at which some of those machines move may present a challenge for persons with disabilities. So, as far as possible, we're responding to all of those things and have highlighted all of those things to the relevant institutions and are no doubt tackling them in the legislation.
I want to come back to you to talk personally about some of the challenges that you've had with access as well. But let's go to the phone lines first. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. Share your comment and question with us.
Yes, I have a grandson that have a disability. He goes to a particular center and he works there, gets paid. He brought home a check when the school closed for the long holiday. Up to now, I have the check still. Cannot get it deposit, nor cannot get an account open for him because he cannot sign his name. And everywhere I go, everybody's just rejecting him and the check. That's my issue.
Okay, so we'll try to get some answers on how you can get that dealt with here. Sonia, I see you nodding your head as well. Let's get you in here, Sonia, to talk a bit about how this can be dealt with, or can it be dealt with?
Similar experience. I'm hoping that would change because definitely that's something that my son would have experienced. So I feel her pain in terms of not being able to. And we want, especially credit unions as well, but I don't think they want to follow if we had that meeting. At least with the bank, hopefully they'll be willing to set up that fingerprinting system, remembering that each person is not going to be able to, but they can be identified by a print. And I think it's already might sense. But it's something that they need to do. They have their right, they need to have the independence. He's a young man who's working, and it's sad that his mother, one who is going to be trying to do all this, or he should be able to go into the bank in Barbados at this point in time and be able to deposit his check and do his own transaction. And we're taking away their right Okay, and it's something that I can mention because you have to be as a mother doing all of the transactions for your adult son. Okay, because he might not necessarily by the other credit line and under money or fees that have to pay. So therefore, I believe that of an investment and it's also a good thought to be able to allow him to have that independence, those rights for himself that they can away from.
Okay, let's take a quick pause here. When we come back, we'll get Andwele, Senator Boyce, and Kerryann's comments, their views on that specific issue as well. And we'll delve in more to some of the other issues that the legislation will cover as far as improving the lives of those with disabilities here on the People's Business. We'll be back in a few moments. Welcome back to the People's Business as we talk about improving the lives of people with disabilities and the legislation which is going to be brought to Parliament very soon. We had a caller a short while ago expressing some concern about some banking transactions and getting banking transactions done for their relatives with disabilities where that individual was unable to sign their name, hence not being able to change that check. Kerryann, talk to us about dealing with situations like that and are issues like these covered in the legislation?
The issues like these, your right to an identity and so on, yes, we are addressing those. And like I said, we've met with so many different entities, including the Bankers Association. So even if it's not in the legislation of, these can be amended, but we have brought these things to the various entities' attention that these are issues. Because persons who are blind, persons who are deaf, also have challenges establishing bank accounts. For example, if you are a person who lives on benefits only, the benefits may not be sufficient to sustain you as an independent householder. You may not have a bill in your name. So proof of address is sometimes the stopping point. You may be very well able to sign, but you don't have any proof of address. You have to get someone from the home. But there are situations where the family members take advantage of you. They know you have a bank account. They know that money's coming on in a regular thing, and we've had situations where people have actually stated their family members beat them if they don't hand over the money. So you would want to be able to keep those kinds of information private again. So with the national ID now changing, that is hopefully one method. As you know, you're going to have the digital ID, digital signature as part of it. So for some persons, that would be an option. For others, the biometric system is being used for some of everything else. You can unlock your devices nowadays with your fingerprints. That is an option you can use as well. Use persons' fingerprints as their signature for the bank. We have the digital capacity for those things these days. So that is how we are hoping that the financial institutions will begin to work on such solutions.
I want to go back a bit with you, Kerry, to talk about that situation because people don't think that these things happen here in Barbados, where someone with disabilities, they're being beaten because they're not giving their family member or a trusted other person that access to the funding they're receiving. This is reality. This is what is
Yes, it
happening.
is. Yes, it is. It's a sad reality, but it is a reality. Some persons, it may not be as drastic as a beating, but it is the emotional abuse. You know, you may be living with people, and they're the only persons you have. That's your support network. So of course, when they come to you and they say they need, to hand over the money, you don't feel you have a choice. Where are you going to go? If you don't give them the money, you can't get out to buy the food for yourself. Where are you going to go? How are you going to get the food? How are you going to provide for yourself? So you do have to hand it over. So yes, these things are happening right here in Barbados. And there are those people that say, well, that's not such a big deal. At least somebody looking out for you. But they're not looking out for you. They're looking out for themselves.